Hi everybody! Thank you for joining us here today for Enhancing Nature's Detail with Topaz Detail. My name is Nicole Pascal and I am the Marketing Specialist here at Topaz Labs, and today I will be demonstrating how Topaz Detail can be a very effective tool for your nature photography. Ashley Robinson, our product manager, will join us today, and we'll be answering any questions you may have during the presentation, and then we can both address some questions you may have afterward. Please use the GoToWebinar question module to ask your questions. It's going to be on the actual GoToWebinar panel. If you are having any trouble hearing me today through your computer speakers, you are able to call in by phone as well to follow along. Alright, so let's get started. Whether it's enhancing ice crystals like this on a frozen rose in morning frost, or enhancing the overall feeling of light in your image, the ability to bring out details and enhancing your tone during post-processing is very essential for your nature images. Topaz Detail can help, and it can help in a very simple and effective way. Alright, so we are going to start with this pretty majestic mountain range out in the Colorado Rockies. It's a really nice image to start off with. Here is the original. But Topaz Detail, after working with it just for a few minutes, can really enhance the detail within those darker areas of the image and bring out some amazing texture and shadow and highlights within those mountain range. And you can do all sorts of different things with it. So let's go ahead and get rid of all these layers, and I will show you what we can do. Okay, the first thing you're going to want to do is take your background image or make a copy of your background, and then go up to your filter and Topaz Labs and Topaz Detail. The first thing you'll see is a pre-processing pop-up, and what that is Topaz Detail just letting you know that the pre-processing is going on. And pre-processing is something kind of unique that Topaz does. It breaks your image down internally into several different categories. And those categories are small details, medium details, and large details. And it also breaks your image down with color as well. Alright, another thing you might notice when you get into your plugin is that the settings that you used on the last image you processed are applied to that image you just brought in. So all you need to do is go down to this lower right hand corner and press Reset All, and everything will be set back to their default coordinates. Okay, for this particular image, my objective is to make the mountains really stand out. You know, it's a beautiful image to start off with. However, I know I can bring out some of these details and these shadow areas and really have that starkness and rough mountain texture come out. Additionally, I'd like to really have the detail within this dark foliage areas come out. These green and shadow areas, I'd like to bring some highlight into that as well. The first thing I will do is tell you a little bit about detail itself. If you're not familiar with it, I'll just do a quick recap. Over here on the left, you have your preset panel view and all of your default presets that are given to you with the programs. And as you scroll over them, you'll notice that the preset preview right here actually changes, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what that preset will be. So this bold detail, just press on it and it'll automatically affect your image. You can save presets, import, export, and delete presets. You cannot delete the default preset. That's why that button is grayed out at this moment. Now, this main window is your preview window. You can toggle back and forth between your preview and your original a few different ways. Up here on the upper left of this particular window, you can press original to stay on the original and preview to get back to your preview. You can also click on your left mouse button to toggle back and forth, and your space bar as well. Your space bar will do that as well. Okay, and over here on the right is kind of where the magic happens. You have all of your actual tabs and detail. We have the detail tab, the tone tab, deblur, and color. And then when you open the tab, you'll see all the different parameters that are included within. And we'll go over those here in just a second. We do have an undo and redo button, as well as a snapshot, which is pretty cool. If you find something you like, say, I love this particular image, or I want to see if maybe I can get something better. I'm not sure, so I'll take a snapshot. And then it'll say snap 1. And if I reset all down here and go back up here to snap 1, or previous, I'm sorry, it'll bring me back to that snapshot 1 and all the settings that I used to get to this particular effect. All right, we also have our zoom buttons, and this red square here will tell you exactly where you are looking at within your image. So as you zoom in and zoom out, you'll notice that that red box is exactly what's in the preview area. All right, I'm going to go down here to the bottom and do reset all. Now within this image, I'm going to start up at our detail tab. Within our details, we have small detail, small boost, medium detail, medium boost, large detail, large boost. First, I'm going to play with the small detail. The small detail is going to affect the smallest details within your image. They're going to be about 2 to 3 pixels in size, and medium detail and large detail will correlate to that dependent upon how large your image size is. So let's just play with this small detail and see what it does. You'll notice that this is really good for micro contrast, or just bringing out those smaller areas within the forest area back here on the mountain. All the different textures within the trees and within the grass come out with that small detail. Let me show you before and after. Okay, now the small boost is correlated to the small detail slider. So, for example, the higher you have your small detail, let's take that all the way up to 1 just for an example purpose here. And that's a little heavy for me on the small detail, but this is just for an example. I'm going to take this small boost now to 0.25 or so. And as you can see, that's a really heavy effect. Now I'm going to take that boost back down. I'm going to take my small detail back to where we had it in the beginning, the 0.3, and now take my small boost up to 0.25 again and see if it has that large of an effect. And it does not. It's much weaker than it was before because it's directly correlated to the detail slider in that category. The same thing for the medium and large. So I'm going to take this small boost a little bit down, maybe at about 0.1. And here's before and after. As you can see, we have really already brought out a lot of that texture within the mountain range and within the greenery, as well as the reflection within the lake. I'm going to take that small boost down just a little bit and go to my medium detail. Now the medium detail is going to be about double the size of what your small detail is, up to about 10 pixels. So let's take that up a little bit. And I'm just going to go down these real quick. Now really nice one in this particular image is going to be the large detail. Large detail is our patches, our areas, details within your image that are approximately 30 pixels. Again, dependent upon, it'll go down just a bit or up just a bit, dependent upon the size of your image. However, you'll notice that when we start playing with the large detail slider, these larger patches of tone within your image are going to be affected. So watch the mountains especially and the clouds. Watch what happens when we move that large detail slider up just a bit. And I think I'll just take it to 0.3 as well. So that really had an effect on getting that texture to come out, a little bit more of the tone to pop. It's really nice for clouds because it separates the darker tones from the lighter tones. It just really makes your skies pop. So let's take that back down and I'll show you one more time. Okay, and I'll go up to 0.3. And it's just an immediate enhancement on your detail, your large detail within your image. Okay, so let's go to our tone tab. Our tone tab is going to have all the different parameters to brighten or change the luminosity of certain tones within your image. It affects the brightness and contrast, and you can also protect your shadows and your highlights within this tab. Close the Detail tab. Okay, using color and tone within your nature images is really effective at getting the viewer's eye to go directly where you would like it to, so it doesn't get distracted, and the things that you want to enhance are enhanced. And let's go ahead and play around with this just a bit, starting at the brightness slider. I'm just going to brighten the image just a bit because, again, if you remember, my objective here is to really have this, the greenery area here stand out, and one way I can achieve that is to brighten it just a bit. Okay. The contrast, I'll leave that alone. I'm pretty happy with the highlights in this image, and the shadow area is definitely there already. Now the cyan, red, magenta, green, and yellow, blue sliders are very important when trying to change the overall feeling or tone of your image. This is going to affect the luminosity of these shades within your image. So what happens is, when you go to the positive side, for example with the cyan red slider, it is going to make your cyan tones darker, and it's going to bring out your red tones. It's going to make those lighter. And then it's going to be the opposite way, if the opposite effect if you go towards the negative. So this will make the cyan tones in my image brighter and the red tones darker. So it's not actually changing the tone, it's just changing the luminosity, and that's a really important thing to remember with these three sliders, and to remember exactly what it is, what they are doing. I think I want to make my cyan a little bit darker. I want to make that cyan within the sky kind of stand out or get a little bit darker and pop against the white clouds and the mountains. Okay, with the magenta green slider, my beginning objective is to bring some of this detail and lightness and brightness into these darker, greener areas. So because of that, I know that I would need to go towards my green side, which will make it brighter. All the greens in my image. And I'll show you the other way as well, which will make your greens darker and your magenta tones brighter. There's not many magenta tones in this image, so We will go ahead and take that back up to the positive side. And then we have our yellow-blue slider. And I'll just play with this one so you can see. This will make the blue brighter and the yellow darker if you go towards the positive. And as you go towards the negative, it's going to make your yellow brighter and your blue darker. And that really affects the image in very interesting ways. And for me, I'm liking the darker blue, but not this intense. So I'm going to take that back to about negative 0.2, excuse me. So let's see where we started. Here is the beginning image. And here's where we are right now. I think we're doing a pretty good job. So I'm going to keep going down the list here. Okay, the deblur tab is a pretty subtle strength. It should not be used like our in-focus program should be used, you know, to actually take a blurry image in there and improve it. This is just for a very, very subtle sharpening. So let's take that up just a little bit. Now that you could definitely tell, especially within the mountain range and within these trees, and it actually introduced a few little artifacts, so I'm going to take that down. And I think that works nice. Here we are again. This is our before, and here we are after. I'm going to leave the radius the same in the Deep Blur tab, and we'll play around with that in one of the other images. Let's go into our color. Okay, the saturation slider, it's going to increase the overall saturation in your image. So let's just take that up a little bit. As you can tell, it definitely increases saturation. You can also go the other direction and take the saturation out if you want to work with a black and white image. I want to stick with color for this particular one, and I'm only going to increase the saturation a little bit here, maybe 0.1. So here's where we were before, and here's where we are now. Okay, and with our saturation boost slider, it's similar. The boost is correlated to your saturation slider similar ways that the detail sliders are correlated. It's going to take your weaker colors within your image and add a little bit of extra saturation to those. So let's see here. If we take that up even just a little bit, this is a very strong slider, so can be used very sparingly, or if you want to get really vivid with it, you can do that as well. Take that back down. I'm just going to put that at 0.01. All right, and the hue slider. The hue slider is very unique to detail. It is a subtle but very effective slider in giving your image an overall warm or cool feeling. Now, with this image, it already has a bit of coolness in it with all of the blues and the greens. And if you go towards the positive side of the hue slider, you'll notice that that is increased, that overall coolness of the image. As you go towards the negative side of your hue slider, the warm tones begin to come out. The yellows and the reds and magentas here. And I'm going to take it just a little bit towards the warm side, but not much. So right about there. And after going down all the tabs and all of the sliders within each tab, let's see where we are. There we are before, and here we are after. The overall objective was to really bring out the texture and colors within this green area, as well as bring out the texture of these mountains and make them even more striking than they already were. And I think we achieved that. Here's before and after. So I'm going to say OK. That's going to take us back into Photoshop. And there are a few things here that I'd like to tell you about that you can control the effect that you achieved in detail, even more so than you can in detail. And a few of those things are simply your opacity levels on your layers. If you think that maybe this is a little bit too strong for you, you can just overall affect your layer opacity. Take that down to, let's say, 50%. And now you have before and after. It's just not as strong, and that might be something you'd rather do. Also, something you can do is create a layer mask and paint in or out some of the effects that you see within the image. So let's go ahead and just show you that really quickly. Let's highlight our layer and go to Layer, up in the menu, Layer Mask, and I'm going to choose Reveal All. There's also Hide All. Hide All is going to give you a black layer mask that will hide all of the layer completely. Reveal All is going to give us a white layer mask where you can paint out some of the effects versus paint in. So I'm going to come over here to my paintbrush. I'm going to make sure my color is black, which it is. On your paintbrush, you want to make sure that your hardness is taken all the way down, because you don't really want to have a really a line that's obvious with where your image is being affected and where it isn't. And then I usually keep my opacity about 50% when I'm doing something like this. Now, say you want to maybe darken this particular area up just a little bit, and you know that your layer beneath, our background layer, is a bit darker, so you can just paint out some of this effect really simply and very quickly. So now this area matches more of the right forest area as well. So there's before and there's after. To show you something a little bit more extreme so you're able to see it, I'm going to take my opacity up to 100, and I will go ahead and paint out, let's say, the clouds. Just so you can see exactly what's going on. And so the rest of your image is affected, but your cloud area is not. So those are just some quick tips if you want to only affect parts of your images versus the entire global image. All right, so let's go on to our next image. And this image is of a frozen rose, has ice crystals all over the petals. And this is the after image, but here's the before. I'm going to get rid of our background copy and start fresh. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a new background copy. And our objective for this particular image is to really get these ice crystals to pop off of the petals, sharpen them up, and have them stand out a little bit more. I also want to darken my background and give it a little bit more of a warm feeling, and all of this can be achieved pretty quickly in detail. So let's go ahead and go to Filter, Detail 2, okay, and the same Preprocessing, and as you can see, the effects from the mountain image were just applied. So all you need to do is go down to the Reset All button, and it'll take you to all the defaults. All right, we'll do one more quickly through all of the actual settings, and then we can play with some of the presets with the other images. All right, so we're starting out with our detail. I'm going to zoom in on exactly the area we want to affect. So here we are. I'm really looking at bringing out these smaller, intricate little ice crystals, and then sharpening up these larger ones up here that should be more in focus. So let's start out with our Detail tab and the Small Detail. And I'm going to push this pretty high and see what happens. Immediately, you have a lot of those smaller details pop out. Here's before, and here's after. It just really crisped the image, or the little crystals up. Here's before and after. Okay, so let's go a little bit more. Might just use the boost a little bit. It's pretty, those smaller ones are at a level where I'm pretty happy with. I don't want to go too much with them, go too high with the sharpness, so I'm going to go to my medium detail at this point. The medium detail is going to affect this. Before I do it, I'll show you kind of the area it will affect. These larger ice crystals will start to really take shape and have a really nice result when this medium detail slider is increased. It just brought out a little bit more depth in the tones, a little bit more contrast. So here was before, and here's after. There we go. All right, the medium boost I'll just put up just a little bit, not much. Large detail is going to, again, affect more of the tone within your details. Let's see what it does if we take it up to, let's say, 0.2. So in this particular image, it doesn't affect too much of these smaller details. However, it is a nice little contrast within the tone, the larger toned areas. So here's before, and here's after. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of my detail parameters there and go on to my tone. And because my tone is more of the overall global effect, I'm going to zoom back out. All right, again, we want to kind of darken up the background area and give it a little bit more of a warm tone. So immediately I'm just going to take my brightness down to, let's say, 0.09. So that was a nice decrease in brightness. The contrast, I'm not going to change very much because I'm pretty happy with my highlights and my lowlights. The cyan red, again, if I go towards the red side, it's going to brighten up all of my red tones and darken my cyan tones, which there aren't many in this image. And if I go towards my cyan side, it's going to darken that red. So in this particular image, here's 0 again. I'm just going to take it down just a notch, maybe about 0.08, so negative 0.08. Here it was before and after. So we've darkened the redness of the flower just a bit. Now with my magenta green slider, I know a lot of my background here has a green overtone, and since I still want to take that down a bit, I'm going to darken the green, which means I will go towards my magenta side. And what that did was brighten our magenta tones just a bit. So if you notice that the flower, actually, the magenta tones within the flower brightened just a bit. All right, let's move on. Okay, the yellow-blue slider, again, same effect. I'm just going to take that down a notch to get those blues. And the Protect Shadows, what the Protect Shadow is going to do is exactly kind of what it says, protect your shadows. It'll lighten up the shadow areas to introduce some of the detail that's in there back into a good view. You have to be a little bit careful because it does, sometimes if you push it too high, you'll get a little bit of a hazy effect. So you just want to use it sparingly. And then the Protect highlights I will use just a bit. There are a few ice crystals here that are, the highlights are clipping, so I'm just going to push that up. But then again, the light should be shining through them, and it doesn't really take away from the effect of the overall image. With the deblur, I'm not going to worry about that in this image, and go directly down to the Color tab. I'll put the saturation up just a bit. So here's where we were before, and here's where we are now. Okay. The saturation, if you'll notice, it actually gave me a little bit more of a warmer tone when I introduced some more saturation in there. So that was nice. Nice effect. And then the hue, again, if you could push it towards the positive side, will give you more of a cooling effect on your image. See how those greens just popped out like that? They really are actually a bit not what we're looking for. We're looking for more of a warm tone. So I'm going to go towards the negative side, maybe about 0.3. That really brought a nice warm light feeling to the image. So again, here is before, and here is after. We achieved our objective, got all of these little ice crystals to really pop out, and we achieved a nice warm tone to the background and overall feeling of the light. So let's press OK. And I'll show you one more real quick. Let's see here. We'll do this one. And get rid of these so I can show you how I achieved that. Here's the beginning image, which actually has quite a bit of haze, atmospheric haze, and is not a very strong image that pops out. And what we're trying to achieve with the detail is to really brighten up these details, to take away that hazy effect and get the details to kind of shine through from this mountain and this mountain back here as well. And then we will actually get the tone and color. I'm going to take it into adjust, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. Okay, so let's go ahead and take that into our background copy. We'll go Filter, Topaz Labs, Detail 2. And you'll find this kind of feeling in many images. Let's reset all. This natural atmospheric haze. And Detail handles that very well with even one of my favorite presets for nature images is this Creative Detail Accent. Let's press that, see what we get. Immediately, you start to see a little bit more clearly through the image, or it gives the effect of seeing more clearly. So here's where we started, and here's where we are now. And I'm just going to quickly enhance this detail just a bit, and then we'll go through the tone as well. Okay, the small detail looks pretty good. Now the sky has a little bit of small detail that's being enhanced that is almost acting like noise within the sky. If you'll notice, here's before, and just keep an eye on that sky as I go after. There's after. And while it did pop out some of those shadows and highlights, it did introduce a little bit of that noise-like effect there. So one way to handle that is taking your small boost slider and take that negative. So watch what happens as I go negative. Immediately smooths out that, it immediately smooths out the sky without actually taking away the shadows or the highlights. Okay, so let's move on to our medium. I'm going to take the medium down just a bit to about 0.3. Medium boost I'll take up. And watch the mountains here as I move the medium boost up. It's going to take those weaker medium details and really have those stand out. So you see those structure and kind of micro contrasts step out of those, out of the mountain range there. Okay, the large detail I will go up just a bit, and the large boost, let's pop the sky out just a little bit with that. Okay, with our tone, I'm going to take the brightness down. And that's also going to counteract that hazy effect that we were getting in the beginning. So just a little bit. That brings in a nicer richness to the water over here on the left and in the mountain on the left, and we're starting to see a lot more clearly over here on the right where that haze was so apparent. Okay. Quickly here, I'm just going to go through the contrast. We'll just bump that up a bit. The cyan red, I'm going to take those reds a little bit brighter, the cyan a little bit darker. We'll see what happens when I go the other direction. Okay, I think I'm going to go back over here. The magenta green, I'm going to take this green area right here that's standing out a bit too strongly for me. I'm going to take that down. So I'm going to take a little bit of that luminosity out. You see how it affects that line of green there? So here's before, and now we have after. Okay, with the blue, I'd like to brighten just a little bit because that yellow line right here, I still want to deal with that just a little bit. So I want to darken the yellow, brighten the blue. Okay, here's before and here's after. Okay, I'm just going to go straight down here to the color tab and bump up our saturation just a bit and take our hue towards the more warm side. Okay, here's where we started, and here's where we are now. Our sky really popped out. We're able to see more clearly to the mountains. A lot of this detail in the background is starting to pop out. Really nice textures coming out in this patch of trees here. And the tones and detail in these rocks have really come out as well. So I'm going to press OK. One cool thing about this is if you want a more dramatic effect, you can take this into adjust afterwards. The difference between detail and adjust, many people think they're really similar, but detail is definitely not as strong as an effect. It's much more subtle, and it's there to deal with more of the different sizes of detail within your image, more of the intricacies, and then because of that, a lot of the effects are applied locally, whereas adjust is a more global effect. So let's just take that into adjust just to have fun. So I just made another background copy of the detailed layer, and I'm going to take that into adjust real quick. Ooh, that setting was a little strong. So let's go down here to reset all. And really, you can just go over any of these presets just to kind of inspire you to do certain effects to it. You can get really crazy with the specify or something like the color blast, and really have fun with it and adjust. And it applies an overall global effect that I think Detail enhanced beforehand by bringing out all of this texture and shadow and highlights. So let's see here. I'm going to do the exposure color stretch. And it looks pretty extreme here, but I'm going to say OK. Take it back into Photoshop and then take that opacity down just a bit. In addition, I'm going to grab a layer mask, going to reveal all, and one of the things you may notice is that that noise type effect was amplified a little bit with that adjust filter. So I'm going to take out that adjust. Oops, I'm on the wrong. Oh no, I'm not. Okay, here we go. I'm going to take out some of that color and adjust. I'm going to take it out of the sky, just so that smooths over the sky. And you don't have to do this. It's just something that I'm showing you, all different sorts of possibilities. Kind of doing this pretty quickly as well. So here we have the original image, your detailed, and then taken into adjust to apply some fun, more dramatic effects. All right, so if anybody has any questions, I am ready to answer a few. We have a couple more minutes here. Robert asks, can I use detail on an image that I intend to simplify in such a way that I pre-bias some of the details for less simplification? It's not too convoluted, Robert, but so yeah, you can, like I just did for going into the adjust, you can do the same thing that going into simplify. You know, the simplify program is something you know, that can create some really nice painterly effects, and popping out some of those details beforehand can create a different effect than maybe smoothing them over. So it's something that you can play around with to really achieve the look that you're after. But yes, you can go into detail and pop those details out first before going into simplify. Okay, Donette asks why I didn't necessarily protect the shadows in one of my images. Donette, you can use this slider for images that have really dark areas that you want to pop out. The protect shadows would have been good in this little area right here, but there are some nice details there as well. It depends on where you really want to bring that texture and detail back into your shadow area. This image, the forest image here that I didn't get to, it's really nice to use on this dark shadowy area right here. Let me show you real quickly. I'll just take this background image into detail, show you what it can do. So my objective with this forest image was to take the overall brightness down, bring out the details and texture in this lower right hand corner, really drawing the attention of the viewer to this waterfall, which is so beautifully shot. And I feel like the attention is kind of taken away by this bright foliage and the all the stuff going on around it. So one way to solve this is just going to your brightness tab, taking, let's reset all here. There's a reset all. And all I'm going to do is take the brightness down and show you what the protect shadow can do. So by taking that brightness down, we've really blocked up our shadow area here. So by coming down here and protecting our shadow, even just a little, you start to bring in those details back into those shadow areas. So let me show you again. Here they're getting pretty blocked up right here in this area. And I'm going to, let's go up to about 0.1. That really brings a lot of detail back in. You see the texture again, and that's what the Protect Shadow slider should be utilized for. The same thing with your Protect Highlight slider. As you can tell here, the highlights are a bit blown out on the top of this waterfall. You can bring a little bit of tone back into that, such as right there, or take it out or leave it out, but it will bring a little bit more tone into your highlights and try to bring those highlights down. I hope that helps. Okay, I'll answer a couple more questions. Okay, Eric asked a really good question. How closely does increasing detail relate to sharpening? One of the key traits, features about this detail program is that it does not produce halos or artifacts into your image as it enhances the detail. There are many people who use Topaz Detail as their output sharpener, or even just to increase the micro contrast or texture details, without actually giving that halo effect that you can get with unsharp mask or other sharpening methods that tend to give you a line contrast. So that's one of the really nice features of detail. So you can use it as a sharpener. It's just it is a different type of technology behind it. I think that's about all the time that we have today. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and send me questions at webinars@topazlabs.com, and I hope to see you at future webinars. Thanks. Bye-bye.